The Smiths, undeniably one of the most original, unique and iconic bands in the history of rock pop. Formed in 1982, only to split 5.5 years later, they came along at a time when shiny, bright 80s party pop dominated the world of music, and for a certain marginalised, alienated section of society who could never relate to that world, Stephen Patrick Morrissey, Johnny Marr, Andy Rourke and Mike Joyce came along like a beacon of light to save them. For many, 1980s Britain under the Thatcher government was a dark time, but the Smiths were a band whom you could truly believe in. And in an era when indie music was still a subculture that never came close to reaching the mainstream consciousness, the Smiths paved the way for future generations, and in that sense, they should be considered one of the most influential, era-defining bands. Johnny Marr and Morrissey couldn't have been any more different from each other on the surface. Marr was streetwise, driven, dynamic, destined to make it as a musician after honing his skills in bands since he was an early teenager. Morrissey was almost the exact opposite. Although 4 years older than Marr, he was shy, awkward and a self-confessed back bedroom casualty. But together they created some of the most inspiring music of a generation. Morrissey's lyrics are so honest, descriptive and provoke such vivid imagery. People who write them off as miserable and melancholy are missing the point. There's real humour and self-deprecation in some of Morrissey's lyrics, which is a big part of their appeal. So, let's get into it. Starting at number 5, How Soon Is Now? Okay, I have to say this song could and probably should be higher, but I think probably over-familiarity prevents that. But that doesn't take away from the absolute genius of this track. Incredibly, it was originally released as a B-side to the William It Was Really Nothing single, then later featured on the Hatful of Hollow album. The truly original, distinctive Johnny Marr riff, the iconic tremolo effect, it's like no other song I've ever heard. And as for the lyrics, this is Morrissey at his absolute best. Heartbreaking and emotive, touching on a theme that has probably resonated with so many of us at different times in our lives. No one else can articulate these feelings quite like Morrissey can. An absolute masterpiece. At number 4, Big Mouth Strikes Again, from the Queen Is Dead album released in 1986. I feel this song is somewhat overlooked. Admittedly, it does have happy associations for me personally, as one of the first Smith songs that I discovered in the Manchester indie clubs as a 17, 18-year-old. I was born too late to be aware of the Smiths at the time they were actually together, and my musical journey really started a few years later in the early to mid-90s, starting mainly with the kind of Britpop era, which led me to discover bands like the Smiths retrospectively. Big Mouth, along with This Charming Man, were the first two Smith songs that I really came across, and this track is just a perfect combination of Morrissey's playful, self-deprecating lyrics coupled with Johnny Marr's more hard, upbeat riff, and it just works. On to number 3, Cemetery Gates, an album track from the Queen Is Dead album. I love the jangly, upbeat melody of this one, and the way the song just sort of bounces along. And like so many other Smith songs, it has an optimism to the way that it sounds, which may sometimes feel at odds with the lyrics. But Morrissey giving us an insight into his world where he and a friend visit the Southern Cemetery in South Manchester as he describes two friends trying to outquote each other the lines of famous poets. And then he goes on to explore the wider theme of the relationship between the immortality of written words and the mortality of human beings. It's just fantastic. Number 2, This Charming Man, released in 1983 from the self-titled debut album. This wasn't the first single the Smiths released that was actually hand in glove, but This Charming Man always feels to me like the band announcing their arrival to the world. The opening riff from Marr perfectly showcasing his intricate, well-crafted, unique playing style. Andy Rourke's much underrated yet incredible bass playing, the backdrop for Morrissey's genius. The lyrics are revealing and ambiguous in equal measure, and the result is an absolute classic. And finally, my number 1 Smith song, There Is a Light That Never Goes Out. Another album track from The Queen Is Dead, and hard to comprehend that a song this exceptional wasn't released as a single. The story goes that Johnny Marr wanted to keep it that way, as it was a sign of a great album to have a song this strong that wasn't even released as a single. Once again, the combination of the music and lyrics is perfect. The chords and the melody, the perfect backdrop for Morrissey's heartbreaking and heartfelt lyrics as he confronts the human desire, or possibly his own desire, for love or connection. The search for a love so profound that he would rather die with the person he loves than live alone without them. Just hauntingly beautiful. There's so many other Smiths songs that I could have included that narrowly missed out. This band created so much incredible music in such a relatively short period of time. The Smiths burned bright for 5.5 years before the inevitable cracks started to appear. But more than almost any other band, their legacy and popularity remains as strong as ever, probably even more so now than at the time they were making music together. They remain an inspiration and showed the way for many other great bands in the years that followed, but not many of them were this great. The Smiths are, and will always be, a light that never goes out. Thanks for watching. I'd love to know your favourite Smiths tracks, so please let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you next time.